when people start comparing him with Jordan, then that's not a fair comparison, because Jordan is far more superior player. I mean, that's not taking anything away from LeBron James, because he's a great player, but it's not a fair comparison, because I think Jordan is much far superior player.
LeBron is not as good as Michael Jordan? Come on.
What do you think?
LeBron is in a class by himself. What is
Don Nelson just said what everyone's been thinking, but nobody dared to say out loud. LeBron James can't earn respect the way Michael Jordan did. The legendary coach didn't hold back, and what he revealed about the difference between these two icons is shaking the basketball world to its core. This isn't just another hot take from a retired coach trying to stay relevant. This is a calculated, brutal truth bomb from someone who's seen it all, coached the best, and knows exactly what separates legends from pretenders. And when you hear what Nelson actually said about LeBron's approach to greatness compared to MJ's, you'll never look at the GOAT debate the same way again.
He defends like a guard.
And winner take out?
Yeah, winner takes ball.
Winner take out.
Winner takes ball.
Okay, no, that one. So
why would it never happen?
Because Michael Jordan was all defensive first team 9 times.
Okay.
LeBron James was 5 times.
Okay.
Michael Jordan led the league.
That's longevity of career.
I'm gonna answer your question.
Okay.
So Michael Jordan led the league in scoring 10 times.
Okay.
10.
All right, you guys, that was it for today's episode. I think it's kind of clear on what side I am. Michael Jordan, to me, will...
It's early 2025, and the basketball world thought it had heard every possible angle on the LeBron versus Jordan debate. We've dissected the stats, compared the championships, analyzed the competition, and broken down every clutch shot until our eyes bled. But then Don Nelson decided to drop a truth bomb that nobody saw coming. For those who don't know, Don Nelson isn't just some talking head desperate for clicks. This man has over 1,300 wins as an NBA head coach. He's seen the evolution of basketball from the physical, brutal era of the 80s through the finesse-driven game we watch today. He coached against Michael Jordan's Bulls during their reign of terror. He's developed Hall of Famers. He knows what greatness looks like up close. And more importantly, he knows what it takes to earn respect in this league. So when Nelson speaks, people listen. And what he said about LeBron not being able to earn respect like MJ, it wasn't said with hate. It wasn't said with bitterness. It was said with the cold, factual tone of someone who's stating an obvious truth that everyone's been too scared to acknowledge. The statement surfaced through private conversations that made their way into basketball circles, not on mainstream media yet, not plastered across ESPN's homepage, but whispered between coaches, former players, and basketball insiders who know that some truths are too controversial for prime time. And this truth, it cuts deep. Nelson's point wasn't about talent. It wasn't about statistics or accolades. It was about something far more fundamental, something that can't be measured on a spreadsheet or captured in a highlight reel. It was about the path to greatness and whether that path commands the same respect. Social media caught wind of it, and the usual chaos ensued. LeBron stans screaming about disrespect, Jordan loyalists nodding in agreement. But here's what most people missed in the noise. Nelson wasn't trying to diminish LeBron's accomplishments. He was making a distinction that the modern NBA desperately needs to understand.
Jordan rules. Yeah.
But again,
Is that what they call it? Yeah.
They call it the Jordan rules. But it was more of a physical challenge or a mental hurdle. Which one would you say it was more? The
both.
Physical or both?
It was both. They like to junk up the game. They like to beat you down, hard fouls. If they played today, they'd be, flagrant twos.
Rebound Jordan. And Mahorn took Jordan down. Yeah.
I was beat down because of the physicality of what was happening within the game. And I didn't have.
To understand Nelson's perspective, you have to go back to what earning respect actually meant in Jordan's era. And I'm not talking about the romanticized version we see in documentaries. I'm talking about the blood, sweat, and psychological warfare that defined basketball in the late 80s and early 90s. Michael Jordan entered a league that didn't want him to succeed. The Detroit Pistons created the Jordan rules, a defensive scheme specifically designed to beat him into submission. They didn't just guard him, they punished him. Every drive to the basket was met with elbows, forearms, and bodies crashing into him at full speed. This wasn't basketball, this was war. And here's the thing. Jordan could have complained. He could have demanded trades. He could have joined forces with other superstars to make his path easier. But he didn't. He took every beating, studied his enemies, got stronger, and came back harder. He earned his way past the Pistons by becoming so mentally and physically dominant that even their brutality couldn't stop him. Nelson coached during this era. He saw firsthand what it took to survive, let alone dominate. Respect wasn't given because of potential or highlight plays. Respect was earned through repeatedly facing your biggest nightmares and refusing to break. It was earned by staying with one organization through the failures until you figured out how to win. It was earned by making everyone around you better through sheer force of will and competitiveness. Jordan built respect through enemies, not friends. The Pistons hated him, but they respected what he became. The Knicks battled him in brutal playoff wars, but they respected his killer instinct. Even the players Jordan torched night after night admitted they'd never seen someone so obsessed with destroying his competition. Nelson saw all of this. He coached against those Bulls teams and felt the suffocating pressure of trying to game plan against someone who wouldn't accept anything less than victory. And that's the standard he's using when he says LeBron can't earn the respect the same way. Not because LeBron isn't talented, but because the path LeBron chose was fundamentally different. Now let's talk about the elephant in the room. LeBron James is one of the most accomplished players in NBA history. 4 championships, 4 MVPs, all-time leading scorer, finals appearances that span over a decade. On paper, the resume is untouchable, so why would Nelson say he can't earn respect like Jordan? Because accomplishments and respect aren't the same thing. Think back to 2010. LeBron was the king of his hometown, carrying a franchise on his back for 7 years. He was beloved. He was the guy. And then came the decision. One television special later, and the entire basketball world's perception of LeBron shifted. Not because he changed teams, players do that, but because of how he did it and who he joined. Running to Miami to team up with Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh wasn't about taking on a challenge. It was about engineering the easiest possible path to championships. And sure, you can argue it was smart. You can say he was just trying to win. But here's what Nelson understands that many fans don't. Respect in basketball isn't just about winning, it's about how you win. Jordan never called Magic Johnson and Larry Bird to team up against everyone else. He beat them. Then he beat them again. He made Scottie Pippen great through years of development and shared struggle, not by recruiting an established superstar. The Bulls' championships felt earned because they were built through drafting, development, and determination. LeBron's path has been different. After Miami, he went back to an organization that completely rebuilt around him with multiple #1 picks already in place. When that didn't produce enough championships, he migrated west to join another super team situation. Each move was calculated for maximum championship probability, minimum resistance. And here's where Nelson's critique gets really interesting. LeBron is simultaneously the most decorated player of his generation, and somehow the least respected by the old guard. How is that possible? How can someone with 4 rings and every statistical record still be fighting for legitimacy in the GOAT conversation? Because respect isn't given through accumulation, it's earned through the manner of achievement. Nelson has seen both approaches up close, and his verdict is clear. One path commands reverence, the other commands acknowledgement. They're not the same thing. When Nelson's comments started circulating through basketball circles, the reactions told you everything you needed to know about their accuracy. This wasn't met with unified outrage or dismissal. It was met with uncomfortable silence from some and vigorous nodding from others. Former players who competed in the 90s almost universally understood Nelson's point immediately. These weren't LeBron haters or Jordan fanboys. These were professionals who lived through both eras and recognized the distinction Nelson was making. They've seen the difference between building a legacy through adversity versus engineering one through optimization. The generational divide became crystal clear. Younger fans who never witnessed Jordan's journey in real time struggled to understand why team hopping matters. To them, basketball is about results. 4 championships is 4 championships, regardless of how you got them. But to the players who actually competed, who understand the unspoken code of earning your stripes, Nelson's words resonated deeply. What's fascinating is LeBron's camp staying completely silent on this. No social media clapback, no cryptic Instagram posts, no podcast appearances to defend his legacy. Just silence. And that silence speaks volumes, because when you've spent your entire career controlling the narrative, curating your image, and responding to every slight, choosing not to respond means something hit too close to home. The media tried to spin it into typical GOAT debate content, but they missed the nuance. This isn't about rings or stats or who had better teammates. Nelson's critique is about something the analytics revolution can't measure: the intangible quality of how greatness is perceived by those who actually played the game at the highest level. You can see it in how former players talk about Jordan versus LeBron. When they discuss MJ, there's a reverence in their voices, a respect that borders on fear. They talk about his competitive psychosis, his refusal to lose, his willingness to destroy friendships for victory. It's not always admiration, but it's always respect. When they talk about LeBron, it's different. It's appreciation for his talent, acknowledgement of his accomplishments, recognition of his basketball IQ. But that edge of reverence, that underlying current of "this man was different," it's not quite there. And Nelson is saying the quiet part loud. That difference matters. Here's where we need to get real about what Nelson's perspective exposes. The modern obsession with quantifying greatness has made us forget that some things can't be quantified. LeBron has more career points than Jordan. He has more assists, more rebounds, more playoff appearances, more finals appearances. If you're building a basketball robot in a lab and feeding it nothing but statistics, LeBron wins. But Nelson isn't talking about statistics. He's talking about aura. Aura is that invisible force that makes opposing players check the schedule and dread seeing your name. It's the psychological way to facing someone who's proven they'll do whatever it takes, overcome any obstacle, and never, ever submit. Jordan had it. Kobe chased it his whole career because he understood its value. And according to Nelson, it's the one thing LeBron's resume can't manufacture. Think about Jordan's defining moments. The flu game where he dragged himself off the floor to drop 38 points while visibly sick. The shrug game against Portland where he just kept hitting impossible threes and gestured like, "I don't even know how I'm doing this." The final shot against Utah with the entire basketball world watching and complete certainty that he'd deliver. These moments didn't just add to his stats, they added to his mythology. LeBron has incredible moments too. The 2016 finals comeback, the Game 6 against Boston in 2012, the Cleveland Game 5 in 2007 against Detroit. But here's Nelson's point. Those moments feel like chapters in a career, not defining statements about who he is as a competitor. They're impressive performances, not mythological events. And before you say that's just nostalgia talking, ask yourself this. Why do players still study Jordan's mentality? Why do they still reference his competitive psychosis as the gold standard? Why is Mamba mentality, Kobe's imitation of Jordan's approach, still the aspirational mindset for young players? Because what Jordan represented transcends statistics. Nelson has coached long enough to know that championships come and go. Teams win titles through superior talent, better organizations, fortunate timing. But respect, the kind that survives decades and defines how you're remembered, that's earned through the intangibles, the willingness to suffer, the refusal to take shortcuts, the commitment to facing your demons rather than running from them. LeBron's accomplishments are undeniable, but accomplishments without the right context don't command the same respect. That's not hate, that's not nostalgia, that's just the reality of how legacies are judged by the people who actually built them. So here's the part that makes everyone uncomfortable. Nelson's perspective might matter more than all the Twitter debates combined, because when all is said and done, when LeBron finally retires and the hot takes cool, who gets to decide his legacy? Not the fans who never played, not the media members crafting narratives. The players do, the coaches do, the people who actually competed at that level and understand what it cost. And if those people, like Nelson, are making distinctions between types of greatness, that becomes part of the permanent record. LeBron is in his final years now, and every move he makes is under this microscope. Can he add to his legacy? Absolutely. Another championship would be remarkable at his age. But here's the question Nelson's comments force us to confront. Would another ring change the fundamental critique? Would it suddenly make his path comparable to Jordan's journey? Probably not, because this isn't about quantity anymore. LeBron could win 2 more championships, and Nelson's point would still stand. The way you achieve greatness determines the kind of respect you receive. And in basketball culture, especially among those who lived through the 80s and 90s, there's a hierarchy to that respect. Can respect be earned retroactively? Can LeBron do something in his twilight years that fundamentally changes how he's perceived by the old guard? It's possible, but unlikely. Legacies tend to calcify around the defining choices of a career, and LeBron's defining choices were made long ago. The irony is that LeBron might be the most accomplished player who never fully earns the crown. He'll retire with every statistical record you can imagine. He'll have the championships, the MVPs, the All-Star appearances. His name will be in every GOAT conversation for the rest of basketball history, but there will always be an asterisk in the minds of people like Nelson. Not a statistical asterisk, but a philosophical one. Jordan didn't just win, he won in a way that made everyone acknowledge he was different. He built a legacy that transcends the game itself, and according to Nelson, it's the one thing LeBron's resume can't manufacture. So here's the question keeping NBA insiders up at night. If LeBron retired tomorrow with everything he's accomplished, would he have the respect that matters? Or is Nelson right, that no amount of stats will ever give him what Jordan earned through those bloody battles and refusing to take the easy path? Can greatness be measured in championships alone, or does the journey matter just as much as the destination? Don Nelson didn't say what he said to be controversial. He said it because it's true, at least from the perspective of someone who's earned the right to judge greatness. LeBron James is an all-time great, a generational talent, and one of the most accomplished players in basketball history. But accomplishment and respect aren't always the same thing. And when a coaching legend with more than 40 years in the game makes that distinction, maybe it's time we stop treating every criticism as hate and start acknowledging the uncomfortable truths about how legacies are really built. The GOAT debate will rage on forever. But Nelson just reminded us that some questions can't be answered with spreadsheets and championship counts. Sometimes, the most important measure of greatness is the one we can't quantify, the respect of those who truly understand what it takes.